The ice split with a violent crack, and Oliver stumbled, his tiny wings thrashing in panic. Clara cried, "Stand tall, Oliver, don't fall." Rowan pressed close, his chest trembling with sharp calls, warning the colony of predators below. Shadows twisted under the fractured sheet, sleek and patient, as Mara circled with silent hunger. Oliver's claws scratched desperately, his reflection shivering in the thin glaze of water. Elias jeered with a sharp cry, "Fall again, and you'll feed her." The warm wind tore across their feathers, slicing like knives through their down. The colony's cries swelled, echoing across the ice as Mara's pale eyes pierced the surface for a breath, before sinking back into darkness. Oliver swayed, trembling, one step from the frozen abyss. Oliver gasped, clutching a jagged ridge of ice with desperate claws. Clara shuffled close, urging, "Stay upright, my son." Rowan's calls sharpened, ringing against the frozen expanse. Below, Mara circled, her hunger as steady as the tides. Oliver's breaths rose in frantic clouds, each puff torn away by the storm. Elias barked laughter, cruel and shrill, carrying across the colony. Fear rippled outward. Chicks huddled close to their parents, wings beating in scattered panic. The ice beneath Oliver groaned, thunder echoing across the emptiness. His beak quivered, whispering, "I'm trying, mother," voice faint in the storm. Every eye in the colony fixed on the fragile chick, trapped between the frozen sky above and the jaws waiting below. The wind surged, tearing ice crystals into sharp fragments that stung Oliver's eyes. Clara hissed, "Stay behind me, the ice won't forgive another slip." Rowan stepped forward, his frame braced against spreading cracks. Beneath, Mara pressed her snout against the ice, feeling each tremor, her hunger gnawing with relentless fire. Oliver blinked, wings trembling in instinctive panic. Elias squawked mockingly, his eyes flashing cruel joy. The colony shifted, restless cries crashing in rhythmic waves. Cracks crawled across the surface like veins of breaking glass. Oliver muttered, "Don't fall," breath shaky with despair. Mara circled once more in silence, her pale eyes rising as though she could already taste him in her jaws. The colony's cries grew sharper, filling the air with chaos. Clara snapped at Elias, "Your taunts are poison. Be silent." Elias tilted his head, mocking grin stretching across his face. Oliver struggled to lift his feet, shards clinging and cutting his skin. Rowan pressed closer, chest vibrating with calls, gaze locked on the shadow gliding beneath. Mara rose near the surface, her pale eyes glowing through the glassy cracks. Oliver shook violently, frost clinging to his feathers. He whispered, "I don't want to fall," voice vanishing into the storm. Clara bent low, whispering, "You will not fall, not while I breathe." The ocean churned below, patient and merciless, daring him to slip again. The sky darkened, bruised clouds rolling across the horizon. Oliver's knees buckled, ice shrieking beneath him. Rowan barked harsh calls, urging him upright. Clara nuzzled his cheek, whispering, "Your heart is stronger than the storm rise." Beneath, Mara opened her jaws wide, teeth flashing as she circled. Elias barked again, "He's too weak to survive." His voice cut the air like a knife. Oliver's tears froze against his lashes, breath shallow and ragged. He murmured, "I'm still here," though fear shook his voice. The colony pressed closer, cries weaving together in a wall of sound. The wind shrieked through the ice, like a predator itself calling for Oliver's fall into waiting jaws. The storm eased, but Oliver's body still trembled with every gust. Clara pressed close, whispering, "You must learn, little one, or the sea will take you." Rowan's eyes fixed on Oliver, heavy with worry. Oliver stumbled forward again, his claws catching, his wings twitching like broken sails. Elias sneered from a distance, but Oliver ignored him this time, too consumed by fear. The colony shifted to form a protective wall, cries muffled but steady, a rhythm of encouragement. Oliver whispered, "I want to be strong," though his voice cracked. Clara nudged his side, her breath warm against his feathers. "Strength is born here on this ice, not in safety." Above, The sky cleared just enough to show faint light glinting across Oliver's unsteady steps. Oliver shuffled along the ice, each step hesitant. Clara guided him with soft nudges, her voice low. "Balance is survival, Oliver. The sea takes those who stumble." Rowan stood behind, his presence a firm anchor. The colony quieted, their cries fading into watching silence. Oliver paused, claws gripping thin ridges, his reflection quivering in shallow pools. He whispered, "I can do this," though his chest heaved. Clara's eyes softened, her voice steady. "You will do this." The cold gnawed at his feathers, biting deeper than fear. Elias watched with narrowed eyes, a rival already sensing weakness. Still, Oliver took another step, fragile but determined, the weight of survival pressing into his small frame. The ice groaned under shifting weight, sending ripples through Oliver's chest. He froze, heart hammering. Clara brushed her beak against his head, whispering, "Trust the ice, trust yourself." Rowan rumbled low, a steady call that echoed across the silence. Oliver blinked, drawing breath as snow settled around his small body. He lifted one claw, hesitated, then pressed it firmly onto another ridge. The colony stirred, soft cries breaking through, a chorus of fragile hope. Elias scoffed, muttering, "He won't last." But the words fell empty. Oliver whispered, "I will last," voice soft but fierce. His tiny body shook, yet each step carried more resolve than the last. Above, the sky opened with a faint beam of pale light. Oliver moved again, body swaying, yet his claws held true. Clara said, "Yes, that's it, keep steady." Rowan's deep call rolled like thunder, guiding him onward. The colony murmured approval, their cries weaving together like a chant. Oliver's breath came fast, each exhale a puff of frost in the air. He looked toward Elias, who smirked, wings folded with disdain. Oliver whispered, "I won't fall again." The ice cracked faintly beneath, but he pushed forward. Clara's gaze softened, pride in her stance. The cold carved into his bones, yet his heart beat with defiance. He took another step, fragile but firm, the sound echoing across the vast frozen plain. Above, the faint glow of light painted his feathers silver. Oliver paused at the ridge's edge, chest heaving, wings shaking, but his claws steady. Clara whispered, "You are learning, my son." Rowan's call boomed again, a voice of survival echoing across the frozen expanse. Oliver raised his head, eyes catching the pale horizon. The colony hushed, every eye fixed on him. Elias growled faintly, muttering, "It's only luck." But Oliver did not falter. He whispered, "It's not luck," his voice steady now. The ice beneath him groaned but held, and his body leaned firm against the wind. Clara pressed closer, her warmth shielding him. Rowan stood tall, pride in his stance. For the first time, Oliver felt the ice not as a threat, but as ground he could claim. The sea churned with sudden violence, dark waves slapping against the ice. Oliver flinched as a low crack split beneath his claws. Clara pressed close, whispering, "Stay still, the ocean is restless." Rowan let out a deep warning call that rolled across the colony. Elias laughed sharply, "The ice will take him yet." Oliver shivered, his eyes wide as Mara's shadow passed closer beneath the ice, circling with patient hunger. The wind shrieked louder, hurling snow across the ridge, cutting into Oliver's downy feathers. He whispered, "Why won't it stop?" Clara steadied him, her gaze locked on the shifting water. Mara's pale eyes flashed through the waves, a predator waiting for one fatal stumble. The colony's cries grew frantic, fear beating like wings against the storm. The storm deepened, clouds blackening above as the wind drove shards of ice into the air. Clara called, "Keep moving, Oliver. The ice won't hold us here." Rowan stepped forward, bracing his body against the gale. Oliver stumbled but lifted his claws again, muttering, "I must not fall." Elias sneered, his eyes glinting in cruel delight. The colony shifted, restless, their cries clashing like a broken chorus. Beneath them, Mara surged upward, brushing the ice with her massive head, her body slicing through the water like a blade. Oliver gasped, his reflection shattered by Mara's rising shape. Clara's beak brushed his shoulder gently. "Do not look down, Oliver. Look forward." The wind howled, yet Oliver forced one trembling step onto the cracking ridge. A violent crack echoed, the ice splitting further beneath Oliver's feet. He froze, breath coming fast. Clara said firmly, "Do not freeze, Oliver. Move." Rowan's deep call shook through the colony, warning of danger. Mara's pale eyes surfaced briefly, her jaws parting wide before vanishing again. Oliver whispered, "She's waiting," his voice thin as frost. Elias hissed, "Then give her what she wants," his words cutting like the wind. Clara snapped, "Silence!" "Elias!" The colony swayed in panic, cries overlapping, wings beating against the storm. Oliver clenched his claws, forcing himself to step again, the ice cracking louder beneath him. He gasped, whispering, "I will not fall," even as Mara circled beneath, relentless and unseen. The wind roared louder, sweeping Oliver sideways before Clara caught him with a firm nudge. "Hold strong, Oliver," she urged, her voice steady through the chaos. Rowan stepped closer, his deep call echoing like a drumbeat. Elias cackled again, "Even the wind wants you gone." Oliver shook, his breath sharp, eyes darting to the shadow beneath. Mara's sleek form brushed against the underside of the ice, her tail slicing through the green-blue glow. Oliver whispered, "I can feel her," his claws scraping across the cracked surface. Clara pressed against him, shielding him from the storm. The colony's cries rose in waves, a desperate chorus of survival. Still, Mara lingered below, circling slowly, the ocean her endless trap. The storm struck with its full force, the ice shrieking as fissures tore outward. Oliver cried out, "It's breaking!" Clara pressed against him, whispering fiercely, "You will stand, no matter what." Rowan roared his call, louder than the wind, commanding the colony to brace. Elias stumbled, his mocking voice silenced by fear. Mara surged beneath, her body slamming the underside of the ice, sending shards flying into the air. Oliver quivered but held, his claws gripping tighter. His heart pounded like thunder, yet he whispered, "I will not give in." The colony's cries thundered as one, voices merging with Rowan's deep call. Above, the sky split with a pale flash of light, cold and merciless. The battle for survival had only begun. The sea stilled for a moment, its surface broken only by faint ripples. Oliver froze, expecting another attack, but Mara lingered beneath without striking. Clara whispered, "Why does she wait?" Rowan's chest rumbled uneasily, his calls lower now, uncertain. Elias hissed, "She plays with us." Yet beneath the ice, Mara's gaze lifted, her pale eyes holding not only hunger but something deeper. She vanished again, but when she surfaced, she did not strike. Oliver whispered, "She's not like before." Clara pressed against him, eyes sharp, unsure. The colony shifted uneasily, caught between fear and confusion. The ice glowed faintly green, shadows moving below, yet no attack came. In the silence, a new truth stirred, shattering certainty. Mara rose again, her head brushing the surface, but she did not lunge. Oliver gasped, claws digging deeper into the ice. Clara hissed, "Stay back, Oliver." Rowan snapped his beak loudly, warning her away. Yet Mara only hovered, bubbles swirling from her jaws. Oliver whispered, "She's watching, not hunting." Elias shouted, "She's toying with us." But even he stepped back. The colony grew quiet, their cries fading into uneasy silence. Through the broken light, another shadow flickered, a smaller, weaker form beneath Mara. Oliver blinked, eyes widening. Clara whispered, "There is another." Mara dipped again, circling the faint outline below. The truth trembled in the water, changing fear into something sharper, something new. The water churned gently, revealing the faint outline of a tiny seal pup struggling beneath. Mara circled it with urgency, nudging the fragile body upward. Oliver's heart pounded, his fear mixing with a strange recognition. Clara whispered, "She hunts not only for herself." Rowan's gaze hardened, his call low, uncertain. Elias muttered, "She carries her own burden," his tone shaken. Oliver stepped forward, claws trembling, whispering, "She's like us." The colony shifted uneasily, their cries faltering as understanding dawned. Mara's pale eyes broke the surface again, fixed not on prey, but on the world above. For a heartbeat, predator and prey mirrored one another, bound by the same law of survival. Oliver pressed closer to Clara, whispering, "She protects her child." Clara's gaze softened, her voice low. Even hunters must care for their own. Rowan's chest vibrated with a call that carried both warning and respect. Elias sneered weakly, though his voice faltered, "It changes nothing." Yet the colony stirred, their cries no longer filled with panic, but with wary silence. Mara lifted her head once more, her gaze lingering on Oliver before sinking again toward her pup. The storm eased slightly, snow falling slower, as if the world itself acknowledged the shift. Oliver whispered, "She is not only shadow, she is mother." His trembling eased, fear replaced by fragile awe. The colony hushed, every cry silenced as Mara dipped beneath, circling her fragile pup. Oliver stepped closer to the ridge, his claws steady now. Clara whispered, "Careful, Oliver," he said softly. "I see her." Rowan's call rang low, echoing like a warning but also an acknowledgement. Elias turned away, unable to meet the sight. Oliver whispered again, "She is like us, fighting to keep life alive." Clara pressed close, pride glimmering in her gaze. Mara lingered beneath, not attacking, but guiding her pup in slow circles. For the first time, Oliver looked into the water without trembling. The ice groaned beneath him, yet his heart steadied, bound by a truth older than fear. The storm split the sky with a violent crack, lightning streaking across the frozen horizon. Oliver staggered, claws clutching splintered ice. Clara cried, "Hold, Oliver, hold!" Rowan's roar surged above the chaos, commanding the colony to brace. Mara slammed against the underside of the ice, shards spraying upward like shattered glass. Elias shrieked in terror, stumbling backward. Oliver whispered, "I won't give in," though his body shook violently. Clara pressed against him, her warmth anchoring him against the storm. Mara's pale eyes broke through again, jaws parting wide as she struck at the breaking edge. The colony's cries merged into one desperate scream, the sound of life refusing to yield. The ice fractured further, forcing Oliver into his fiercest stand yet. Mara lunged upward, the ice exploding into shards as her jaws snapped where Oliver had been. He dove sideways, scraping his body across the ridge. Clara cried, "Move, Oliver!" Rowan's deep call rolled like thunder, commanding retreat. Elias screamed, "She'll take us all," but his voice was lost in the storm. Oliver gasped, heart pounding, his reflection shattered in the water below. Mara twisted, her sleek body slicing the sea, jaws gnashing with relentless hunger. Oliver whispered, "I won't be taken." His claws dug deeper into the jagged surface, each breath sharp as knives. The colony wailed, wings beating frantically as the predator and child clashed on the thin line between survival and death. The ice shrieked as fissures tore wider, waves crashing beneath. Oliver scrambled, claws slipping, his breath ragged. Clara shoved him forward with desperate force, whispering, "Run, Oliver." Rowan roared again, his call striking fear and urgency into the colony. Elias stumbled behind, screeching, "She's too strong." Mara's head broke through the surface, teeth glinting as she lunged again. Oliver whispered, "Not yet," forcing his body forward with raw instinct. Snow whipped around him, each gust like knives tearing into his feathers. The colony screamed, scattering across the ice in a storm of flapping wings. Oliver's chest burned, yet his eyes blazed with fierce determination. Mara surged again, the battle boiling into its merciless peak. Oliver tripped again, crashing onto the jagged surface, claws scraping sparks of frost. Clara darted forward, shielding him with her body. "Up, Oliver!" she cried. Rowan surged closer, his roar deafening, wings spread wide. Mara lunged, her jaws snapping inches from Clara's feathers. Oliver screamed, "No!" His wings flailed as he scrambled to rise. Elias shrieked, stumbling further away. The colony cried louder, their voices rising in terror. Snow blinded the air, the horizon swallowed by chaos. Oliver's chest hammered, yet he planted his claws firmly, rising again with raw defiance. Mara hissed through the spray, her pale eyes fixed on him, relentless. The battle teetered on the knife's edge of survival. The storm roared, the ice breaking apart in violent cracks. Oliver stood, chest heaving, wings spread wide in defiance. Clara cried, "Stand strong!" Rowan's roar surged louder than the sea, driving the colony into a wall of unified cries. Mara burst through the water once more, her jaws snapping at Oliver's claws. He pulled back, whispering, "I will not fall." Shards of ice flew upward, slicing the air. Elias screamed, retreating into the crowd. Oliver locked eyes with Mara, predator and prey bound in a brutal duel. The world narrowed to breath and survival, each heartbeat a thunderclap. Snow howled across the ridge as Oliver faced her again, fragile yet unyielding, refusing to surrender to the abyss. The storm's fury waned, leaving silence sharp as knives. Oliver stood trembling, claws sunk deep into fractured ice. Clara whispered, "You are still here." Rowan's chest rose with slow, heavy calls, each one steadier than the last. Elias crouched low, his jeers silenced by fear. Beneath them, Mara circled once more, her pale eyes calm now, her pup's faint shadow trailing close. Oliver whispered, "She leaves us," though doubt lingered in his tone. The colony shifted, their cries softened, relief mixing with unease. The ice groaned again, but did not break. Snow fell lightly now, coating Oliver's feathers in frost. The storm had passed, yet the memory of Jaws snapping near still throbbed in every breath. Oliver's chest heaved, each breath heavy but unbroken. Clara pressed against him, whispering, "You are stronger now." Rowan let out a low call, guiding the colony back into calm. Elias muttered he should have fallen, though his voice cracked with defeat. Oliver lifted his head, eyes glimmering faintly, his wings trembling but raised. Mara dipped once more beneath the ice, her pup following in slow arcs. Oliver whispered, "She protects her own like us." Clara's gaze softened with pride, warmth cutting through the cold. The colony stirred again, their cries now measured, no longer panicked. Above them, the horizon cleared faintly, a pale line of light breaking through the bruised sky. The ice ridge held, cracks frozen into jagged scars. Oliver stepped forward, claws steadied this time. Clara whispered, "Your heart carried you farther than fear." Rowan's deep call rose in strength, steady as bedrock. Elias turned away, refusing to meet Oliver's eyes. Beneath the surface, Mara glided, her body a shadow against the fading light. Oliver whispered, "We are the same, bound to protect." Clara pressed closer, warmth against his shivering feathers. The colony's voices swelled in rhythm, a fragile harmony that echoed across the frozen plain. Above them, the wind fell quiet, leaving only the crunch of Oliver's steps on ice. His survival had become more than chance, it was earned. Oliver stopped near the edge, breath forming pale clouds in the cold air. Clara whispered, "Look at the sea, Oliver, it gave you fear and strength." Rowan's call rumbled deep, guiding the colony into silence. Elias muttered low, his voice thin, "Luck, nothing more." Oliver turned his gaze downward, meeting Mara's eyes one final time. She hovered beneath, her pup close, her stare sharp but not cruel. Oliver whispered, "We both endure." Clara touched him gently with her beak, pride glinting in her eyes. The colony watched, hushed, bound by the fragile peace of the moment. Snow drifted slow and soft, covering the jagged scars of ice in a thin white veil. The storm was gone, leaving silence that weighed heavier than chaos. Oliver stood at the ridge, claws steady, wings relaxed at his sides. Clara whispered, "You are changed, my son." Rowan's deep call rolled like the final note of a hymn. Elias lingered behind, his bitterness hidden in silence. Mara drifted into deeper water, her pup swimming close, her shadow fading into the endless blue. Oliver whispered, "She vanishes, but she will return." The colony cried together, voices no longer frantic, but solemn. Snow blanketed the plain, the broken ice sealed under white. Oliver's gaze fixed on the horizon, eyes sharp with something new. He had faced death and learned its truth. Survival demanded everything. The sea was calm now, the storm swept into memory. Oliver stood at the broken ridge, his feathers heavy with frost, but his eyes burned bright. Clara whispered, "You faced death and did not fall." Rowan's deep call resonated low, steady as the ice beneath them. Elias lurked behind, silent at last, his arrogance stripped by fear. Mara drifted farther, her pup close at her side, their shadows blending into the abyss. Oliver whispered, "We are both survivors." The colony hushed, their cries fading to quiet breaths in the cold. Snow fell gently, cloaking the shattered plain in silence. The world was scarred, yet still alive, carrying the weight of what had been endured. Oliver stepped forward, claws steady, wings half raised, as if claiming the ice beneath him. Clara whispered, "This is who you are now." Rowan's call rolled deep, carrying across the plain like a hymn. Elias muttered, "He was meant to fall," but his voice broke, hollow. Mara surfaced briefly, her eyes locking on Oliver's before vanishing again with her pup. Oliver whispered, "Her fight is mine too." The colony stirred, cries rising softly, not in panic but in reverence. The horizon glowed faintly, the storm broken, the air alive with fragile calm. In the silence, Oliver's breath rose steady, no longer frantic, his spirit hardened by fire and frost alike. The colony gathered in a circle, their cries weaving into one solemn sound. Clara leaned close, whispering, "Every step you took was against death." Rowan called again, steady and powerful, guiding their voices into harmony. Elias turned away, feathers bristling, but said nothing. Oliver whispered, "I will walk again, no matter how the ice breaks." His claws pressed firmly into the frozen surface, frost clinging to his down. Mara glided away, her pup tucked close, their bodies vanishing into blue depths. The horizon gleamed brighter now, a thin line of hope across the endless ice. The storm was gone, but its shadow would always remain in their hearts. Oliver's gaze fixed on the vast horizon, his body trembling but unbroken. Clara whispered, "The world will test you again." Rowan's deep call rumbled, carrying weight of both warning and hope. Elias lingered at the edge, his pride shattered, yet his eyes still sharp with envy. Oliver whispered, "I am not the same as before." His breath rose in steady clouds, no longer ragged. Mara did not return. Her shadow vanished, swallowed by the deep. The colony grew still, their cries fading into the wind. Snow swept across the ridge, covering scars of the battle beneath a veil of white. Yet Oliver stood firm, marked forever by the ice's merciless trial. The plain fell silent, the sea unbroken once more. Oliver stood alone at the ridge, his wings folded close, eyes locked on the endless horizon. Clara pressed near, whispering, "The storm is behind you." Rowan's call sounded deep, the final echo of survival. Elias faded into the crowd, swallowed by silence. Mara was gone, her pup with her, their shadows no more than memory in the abyss. Oliver whispered, "I remain," his voice soft but unyielding. The colony hushed, their voices stilled, leaving only the whisper of snow. One last cry tore from Oliver's chest, sharp as the wind, a call that pierced the frozen air. The sound lingered, echoing across the endless ice, unforgettable.